Hey, yo, what's up? How y'all? This is Beans, and you're tuned into the Cabbages Hip Hop Podcast.
One of my favorite Joel verses is on that song on Apollo Kids, the Ghostface record.
Oh, yeah.
Where in like the course of like 2 minutes of verse, he basically is like, I went to a softball game to kill a dude, but the cops were there for some reason. And so I went home, I switched clothes, I went out to have a beer, I got wasted and went to Burger King, and I killed that dude anyway. It's fucking sick. It's so good.
Yeah, that track, that's Joel and Game on that one. Like, that's just like, that's an incredible trio. With
that beat is sick too. That's a great song.
I'm a Joel fan. Like, look, I think The Brick is like one of the best hip hop albums of its time. You know,
Wonderful.
2000, I think about 2007. You know, like, it's a great record and it's a great introduction. You know, and a lot of people kind of knew him through Slaughterhouse later, but it's just like, I think that record is just like, all right, it's like there's Alchemist beats on there. Like, you got folks like Showbiz, you got Immortal Technique, Big Noid is on there. Like, it's a great album, but like, he is just killing it throughout that record. And I feel like, you know, I love what he did with Apollo Brown, the Mona Lisa record, you know, the Illmind record he did for Human. Like, he's been putting out amazing, like, I think of the Slaughterhouse members, he's probably been my favorite artist to listen to post Slaughterhouse. I feel like his post Slaughterhouse output has been some of the best stuff from like House Slippers on.
Yeah, totally fair.
Did you ever hear, and I think this was originally on Free Agent, did you ever hear the song he did with the Locks, Put Some Money on It?
Oh, I heard that song.
Yeah. So like they did that, and there's a Slaughterhouse remix of it, you know, that adds like verses from Royce and them. But there's a line, Chic from the Locks. He says this one line. I think it's just great. And as he says, I'm on BET
more than Leprechaun 3.
Hello and welcome to Shamrocks, a Leprechaun movie podcast, the only unofficial weekly hip hop podcast about the Leprechaun cinematic universe. I'm your host, Gary Suarez. I'm a freelance music journalist and critic, and I write a twice-weekly hip-hop newsletter called Cabbages, which you can subscribe to for free at cabbages.substack.com. Joining me as always is my co-host, music industry insider Jeffery Laughlin. Hello, Jeffrey. How are you?
Don't you remember you told me you loved me, Gary? Said you were coming back this way again, Gary. Gary, oh Gary, I love you.
Really? Back in a minute. I'm so excited to introduce our guest for today's show. Joining us now is Maggie Serota. She's a freelance writer and former spin staffer with bylines at outlets like Billboard, Esquire, Glamour, and Rolling Stone. She also co-hosts the podcast Three Things with Maggie and Mike, available wherever you get fine pod programming. Also joining us today is Beans, a founding member of New York's groundbreaking Antipop Consortium. The rapper has recorded for labels including Anticon, Warp, and his own Tygr Rawwk Rcrds imprint. His latest album is called Venga, available on Bandcamp and wherever music is streamed or sold. Please welcome Beans and Maggie to the show. Hello, and welcome to you both.
Hey.
What's up? How y'all doing?
Hanging in.
Yeah. In an aborted segment that we did before that wasn't recorded, we started talking about something you, our two guests, have in common. And you're both cat people.
Yes. Yeah. This is now a cat podcast. It's a cat podcast. This is called Podcats with Maggie and Beans.
Exactly.
And then our producers Cosmo and you and Hippo and Mortis.
Yeah, Hippo and Mortis, exactly.
Yeah, and we're all rescue kitties, it sounds like, too.
Yeah. Their mom was a big, I guess she was a big advocate of neighborhood sharing her friendliness around.
Mm-hmm.
So she had a lot of litters, and she would just drop off these litters of these kittens to this random doorstep and just let somebody else take care of her breed, her brood. So that's where Hippo and Mortis came out. And originally my missus wanted Mortis, and then I was like, nah, let's don't separate them. Let's just keep them together. So they're brother and sister. So they raise together, eat together, and all that. So
it's like I feel like the closest, like you like decided whether this kitten was gonna live or die. Like, no, we must take them both.
yeah. I honestly, we already had a dog, so I honestly wasn't really sure about getting more pets. But when she was really dead set on getting a cat, so I was just like, well, I didn't really want to separate them. I thought that would be mean to separate the brother from the sister. So I was like, yeah. So I was like, let's just keep them.
What I'm really excited about is that with this conversation, we now have a podcast network. We started out with just one show, and now look where we are. We have entire new things. So podcasts with Maggie and Beans coming this spring to the Cabbages Podcast Network.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious.
Cabbages podcast empire.
I think people would listen to that. I have to say, I think that I was engaged.
How much faster do you think it's gonna grow than Shamrocks? The internet loves cat content.
We only have 6 movies in the original Warwick Davis series to talk about, because we're not acknowledging the 7th and 8th reboots. Those are non-canonical. We're not talking about those. So I think there's a lot more. There's endless possibilities for podcasts, and I'm excited to profit from this.
I actually might get another one. My missus is talking about getting another one.
Wow.
But I got a name though. I got the ultimate cat name.
Shreddy Krueger?
Nah, Chainsaw.
That is an incredible cat name.
Yeah, she wants an orange tabby, and I want to name it Chainsaw.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a good goal, and I think that actually gives some longevity to the show. You add new characters as you go along. I mean, look, it's worked for Mark Maron for how many years?
Right. True.
Every week he talks about his cats. So I feel like you guys can really carve out a good niche here.
Mm.
And again, Jeff and I can sit back and just watch the ad revenue roll in, which is great.
Wait, who's playing who?
It's a good question.
Who's winning here?
Good question. Speaking of winning, today we'll be talking about Leprechaun 3, the 1995 movie that places Warwick Davis's already iconic B-movie baddie in Sin City, where the odds are you won't leave alive.
Vegas! Sorry.
That was an incredible segue.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was smooth, man. I like that.
Thank you. We have a lot to cover.
It's a lot like the segues in the movie.
Oh wow, yeah. I that was my first being exposed to any of the Leprechaun movies.
Oh man, welcome.
But yeah, it was different.
So we really just dropped you into this world.
Yeah, it was different.
So first impressions. What I know Maggie has more experience with these films, but Bean's first impressions having seen Leprechaun 3.
If you hadn't asked me to watch it, I don't know if I would have been exposed on my own. But now that I am, I can't take it back. I can't get those hours back.
But guilty doing this to people.
It was like I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. I was like, yo, this is ill. This is I don't even know it was in a good way. It was just, and then when he turned into a leprechaun from the bite and had the bad Irish accent. I mean, he still got the girl at the end. But I was just like, wow, I can't believe this is actually a movie.
I'm ready to deep dive that part whenever anybody else.
Oh, the union between the oldest college freshman ever and the assistant
the assistant magic.
Yeah, because that's how magic works.
Magician.
You're an assistant and then you get promoted.
It actually was magic that they got together.
Yeah.
It was magic.
That was magic.
Yeah, man.
I have multiple notes about how Scott is a pud.
Oh,
Just every scene, that
Oh,
guy's
man.
just pudding around being a pud.
He was a
I
pud.
hate that guy.
Yeah, I agree with you.
okay. So
Jeff, you on point with that.
So the two leads had very, very divergent paths in Hollywood. The Lee Armstrong, the woman who plays the magician's assistant, that was her fine. She never acted again. That was it for her.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Scott?
That's kind of a thing with Leprechaun movies.
Yeah.
Except for Jennifer Aniston, everyone else is gone.
Yeah.
There's
Wait a
no way to
minute.
find them.
Wait a minute.
There's a real foreshadowing with that,
Right.
with Tammy, because in the film, Lee Armstrong's character Tammy is told by her casino boss Mitch that she'll never work in show business again, and then
That's true.
the actress doesn't. So very eerily prescient.
On the other end of the coin, her co-star, believe his name is John Gaddis, went on to
Yeah.
act more, but he's also an Academy Award winning Academy Award nominated screenwriter.
For what?
The movie Flight with Denzel Washington.
He did the drunk pilot movie?
Yeah.
Oh, I got in so
Really?
much trouble because of that movie.
Yeah. Wait, you did?
Yeah, at the end of that movie. So I went to the theater to see it because I just love seeing Denzel movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I got up at the end of that film. If you've seen it, it's a brutal look at alcoholism.
Yeah.
And I just said, I don't know about you guys, but I could use a drink. The whole area was like falling out laughing. And I looked at my girlfriend, and my girlfriend looked at me like, I will kill you. So she was
That's
like
funny.
red-faced, embarrassed, furious at me. It was not a good
So
look.
you guys just put me onto game right now. You said Jennifer Aniston was in a Leprechaun movie?
The first one. The very first one. It was
That's right.
before Friends.
Stop playing.
It was her.
Stop playing.
It was her first movie and her first nose.
Oh yeah, OG knows.
OG
That's right.
knows that.
Yeah,
Correct.
she had been on television. She'd been on the, I believe it was the Ferris Bueller TV show for
Yes.
Fox, and then she did this movie, and shortly thereafter, Friends.
But so Office Space came after Friends?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh wow.
So if you want to map her cinematic career, you start with Leprechaun.
Starts
It's
with
true.
Leprechaun.
You move your way to Office Space and the various Adam Sandler vehicles.
I feel like
True.
if you ask her, it doesn't start with Leprechaun.
I think she has disavowed the movie.
She's disavowed the film. She doesn't like to talk about it.
I don't think she.
Yeah, I
I think
get
she
it.
pretends she hasn't been in it, which again I think is very insulting to Warwick Davis.
I think it's more so that I think she's disavowing the nose more so than Warwick Davis.
That's fair. That could be true.
I mean, I think Beans, I think you can agree with this. Like we can agree that Warwick Davis is committed as hell to this role, and he is having a blast.
Yeah, I mean the Elvis impression outside the limo was just that was something to behold right there.
That scene was everything that the movies aren't. It is totally pointless to anything. And he just looks at all the gold in Elvis's thing and is like, cool guy. Anyone else who interacts with the Leprechaun that has gold on is going to die or lose a body part.
Yeah.
That's true.
Or escape while being, threatened.
Or get electrocuted while having sex with a robot.
You're bringing up the greatest hits. These are all things that we were going to broach.
We have to.
I kind of feel a little cheated because I wish we had gotten that kind of a montage of Leprechaun just partying across Vegas. I mean, we see him kind of wander around and look kind of mischievous, but it would have been cool to see him at the clubs, just see him really just tear up the town. Maybe he's in a bachelorette party and he's poking his head through the top of the limo and woo.
I think that the tough part of that is that I doubt that they were in Vegas for very long.
They weren't actually. They actually were only in Vegas for one night. They did one overnight in Vegas. The whole movie was filmed in 14 days, and only one of those days was Las Vegas.
Wow.
The majority of the film was done in Los Angeles. So all those amazing scenes of the Lep on the Vegas Strip, kind of goofing around and hitchhiking and giving people the finger. That was all done guerrilla style, which really speaks to the director, who's Brian Trenchard Smith. He's this sort of English Australian director who did a lot of B movies in the 70s. kind of the Ozploitation genre, if you will, who eventually moved to Hollywood in the early 1990s and is known for kind of making movies on the cheap and doing it well. So that was a very guerrilla style approach to it. They didn't have any permits to shoot in Vegas. So all of the stuff they did was just kind of like jumping out of a van and recording and then jumping back into a van. So it's a lot of improv by Davis. So I think we all would have loved to see more of that, but they didn't have the budget or the permits to make that happen.
Yeah, that's fresh. I like that.
I mean, anytime anybody brings up the Safdie brothers from now on to me, I'm just going to point them to Leprechaun 3 and be like, tell me that style is great again, please.
I feel like
I want to hear it.
I feel like there's some great like B-roll, like cutting room floor footage of like Warwick David doing like just different characters and improv. Like when they have him like being the preacher on like the commercial, I feel like there's like a whole roll of film that's him just doing different characters and wilding out.
Just hook it to my veins.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Just hook it to my veins. He's so delightful. I love the Leprechaun. And when he's not on the screen, I'm completely bored and back to my phone.
Well, it's kind of like that has that weird, I mean, the two main actors, the two leads were bad actors, but like everyone else was a good actor. They were like either like a really committed character actor, or you could tell they're really having fun with it, or like a couple of those people had like IMDb pages that go back like decades. Like,
what about the guy who owned the pawn shop?
At one point, I made a note. I want to jump in. At one point, I made a note in my phone that said, "Is this whole movie filmed in this fucking pawn shop?" It was so long. Like, just kill this dude and grab your gold. Let's peace out.
Yeah, yeah.
There were like 3 hunting scenes of this guy.
Also, let me ask you a question. The same guy who did Leprechaun 3, he did all the other Leprechauns as well?
He just did Leprechaun 4. So he did 3 and 4, the director.
He did 3 and 4?
4 is when they go to space, right?
Oh, yes.
Correct.
Yo, what?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just let me jump in real quick with you and just talk about this. The first one is out in the middle of the country. Then the second one, Gary, where was the second one?
It's in LA. It's Hollywood,
in LA.
baby.
LA, Vegas. So it goes way out in the middle of nowhere. LA, Vegas, space. And then 2 in an area just generally referred to as the hood.
Oh, yeah, I saw that when I was Leprechaun in the Hood.
2 of them.
There's 2 of them?
Yeah.
He
There's
was
2.
put twice.
There's Back to the Hood.
Oh, he went back to the hood.
That's where he really thrives.
Oh, wow.
But Vegas feels like an appropriate place for him for a lot of reasons.
Agreed.
And he seems to be thriving out there. Greed is definitely his environment.
Yeah.
And he encounters a great deal of greedy people, starting with the pawn shop proprietor, Gupta, who, just to be clear, hashtag problematic, is not Indian. He's an Argentinian actor playing a pretty gross Indian stereotype.
Oh, man.
Pretty bad.
A lot of the movies of this era don't do right by Indian and South Asians in any way. There's always the famous kind of Short Circuit 2 issue. Fisher Stevens playing an Indian character, and Fisher Stevens is in no way Indian.
Specific to the Leprechaun movies, pawn shop owners are not doing well in this series.
No,
this is the second of 3 movies that has just killed a pawn shop owner.
Yeah, I mean, but I feel like this pawn shop owner seems particularly deserving of his death. He's extremely greedy, and could easily just let Lep get what he needs and get out of there. But
he's a fighter, though.
Yeah,
like he's ready to kick. He's ready to kick the Leprechaun's ass, and he says it. He speaks to himself.
Let me ask y'all a question. So, how he died? I know I'm skipping ahead a little, but
please,
how he passed, how he died. I was, do they explain in the other movies how he keeps coming back? Like, is it a continuity? Like, is that?
This is a subject of much concern of this podcast. I believe it's more fun to think that the Leprechaun is the same Leprechaun over and over again. In real life, there is zero continuity at all. There's no, the powers change. Things are just rampantly wild. However, I truly believe that the Leprechaun just has all kinds of crazy powers and only brings out what he wants for special occasions.
I see.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
he's
look, Jeff
selective.
is mistaken, of course.
Right,
But
right.
as the creators of these films have pointed out, the producers, the people at
Gary
Trimark
hates fun,
Pictures,
just so everyone
the
knows.
people at look, we have to be fair on this. The people at Trimark Pictures, I've read interviews, have made very clear they never had any desire to have any continuity between the films. The only constant is that Warwick Davis plays the Leprechaun, and they use the same makeup person to keep that consistent look.
So we have to
Okay.
live and die by the desires of movie executives now? That's not the way I want to live, Gary.
I have a question. I couldn't find this online, and I was wondering if maybe you know. What was Warwick Davis's salary?
It's hard to say. He doesn't really talk about it too much. I read his book,
Mhm.
and he doesn't really talk about what he made on it, but he clearly was making enough to justify doing these little trips. I will
Yeah.
say part of what he talks about in the book was, he did Willow,
Yeah,
Right.
and then not a lot of work came after that for him.
gotcha.
So he had done Willow, and he did I think Return of the Jedi, and sort of he was having a harder time getting work. I don't exactly know where in the continuity the first Leprechaun shows up, but I feel like it was an opportunity that came to him. And what appealed to him was not the monetary side of it, so to speak, was that he got to play a character that was different from anything else he had played before.
Mhm.
He wasn't playing the good guy. Playing a villain appealed to him tremendously. Given the limited amount of time these films are made in, this film was made in 14 days. It's a fairly low commitment for some sort of check.
Yeah.
So I think there's that incentive there. But I mean, he made 6 of them, so I have to assume that he made enough money to justify it. And I can't imagine a lot of the other people in these films made anywhere near what he made.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, he's not phoning anything in. Like, he is committed from start to finish.
He's a delight.
Yeah.
He's doing all his own stunts, I assume.
He sure is, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's actually him that falls out of a window per se,
Right,
or is
right.
thrown out of the window. But
I'd like you to prove that though, because it was an incredible acting job.
I think the person that was thrown out the window was average sized.
Mm.
Like, I feel like
Oh.
I noticed the size discrepancy when the body came out the window.
Well, that's actually really worth looking at. That might be a blooper.
Yeah.
One of those. And we haven't talked a lot about bloopers on this show, but I think it might be worthwhile to start to track some of these things. Although I think my favorite part of that scene is when he actually lands, and of course does not die, because that's not how you kill a leprechaun.
Right.
No, not at
is
all.
His one-liner, next time I'll take the elevator.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of,
Oh,
I mean, that
man.
was such an uneven script, because it's like there were points in that movie that were genuinely funny. When he's in the when the lead actor's in the operating room, the doctor said, "Listen to me. This is very important. This is going to determine whether you live or die. Do you have health insurance?"
You have health insurance.
An unbelievable line. What a
Yeah.
line.
And then like
Warwick Davis said after this one, this was his favorite one because he loved the director and it was like actually funny.
oh yeah, no,
They
like
had
that.
a great time filming this apparently.
And then they robbed him.
Yeah. And that bitchy magician was having a blast. Like,
Real.
The Great Fazio, you mean?
Fazio.
Fazio suffered quite a few indignities in this film. But I think the worst one is when he first encounters the leprechaun, and pokes a little fun at the leprechaun, and in the end is rewarded with a handful of what I can only describe as leprechaun feces. She's green and stinking, apparently.
oh, is that what that was? I was trying to figure out,
Yeah.
like, did he just hand him like a pile of moss? Like what is that?
Yeah.
Oh no, it was the
It
limerick.
was a pile of something.
Yo, it looked like an Italian icy. I thought it was an Italian icy.
He does a limerick before when he asks what this is. He gives a limerick that makes very clear that he produced it himself. It makes very clear, or makes fairly clear that, this is leprechaun shit.
So now Leprechaun poops. Like, He can move.
This was the
things-
first instance of that. Yes, the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
instance of Leprechaun.
We're learning a lot about the Leprechaun as we go along, even though the continuity issue exists. I've
Yeah.
admitted it. We learn a lot as we go along. In this one, the powers are kind of goofier.
Yeah.
Like he can like shoot weird rays in the first one. That never came back. In this one, he has a thing that is worth talking about, where his spit is acid.
Yeah. And his
But
leprechaun
also can turn you into a leprechaun.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, he's contagious.
He's contagious.
He can poop. He's contagious. What can't he do?
Look, I'm on record as saying that the Leprechaun is one of the best horror villains ever.
Oh yeah.
It just seems like there's a never-ending wellspring. So long as he has his gold, there's a never-ending wellspring of very odd powers.
You called him an LTD.
A what?
An LTT.
Wait, what's that?
Leprechaun. You called him an LTD. A leprechaun transmitted disease.
But it is an extraordinary transformation when he does infect, I guess that's the best way to describe it, infect Scott with the leprechaun virus. The symptoms of the change, potato eating obsessively.
Potato eating.
Despite the fact that the Leprechaun never talks about eating unless it's human flesh. Continue.
Yeah.
I've never seen the leprechaun eat anything in
No.
these movies that isn't a piece of a human being.
But the that potato thing came from the computer in the
Yes.
pawn shop, right?
The
Yeah.
Encarta 95 thing that just happened to be
Yeah.
right about leprechauns in every way.
Yeah.
Encarta was a great thing.
No, look, that was quite modern technology at the time. You know, same with
Yeah.
the title sequence.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was rich.
God,
Those
that
opening
sequence.
credits couldn't have been more modern for 1995.
Leprechaun opening credits are the longest opening credits of any movie in any genre. It's insanely long.
Well, you know, you're not paying people a lot of money, so you have to give credit to everybody who did the work.
Oof.
In the beginning, when he shows up at the pawn shop and he's a statue,
Mhm.
there is no reference to any of the other movies of him being a statue.
This is the first time we've seen the magic necklace theory of stopping leprechauns,
Mm.
where if you put a certain necklace on this person, he seems to have a different weakness in each one of these. The first one was 4-leaf clovers. The second one, it was wrought iron. We never figured out exactly why. And then in this one, it's that necklace.
Oh,
But
okay.
also, if you destroy his gold, he just blows up.
right. Oh, because that's what happened at the end.
Yeah. So there's actually two ways to deal with the leprechaun in this movie. For some reason, they introduced this necklace and this specific gemstone,
Right.
and then they just like don't use it.
Mm.
That's crazy.
It's one of my favorite things that movies do when they're like, "This is very important. Make sure you pay attention to this thing." Okay, we're done.
30 minutes
There's
later,
there's an
never
hour
existed.
left of this movie, and we're never going to talk about it again.
we have
And it
all
was in her
forgotten.
pocket. And it was in her pocket
She
the whole
had it.
time. It was in her pocket. She could have stopped him when she was at the morgue.
They never
She
used
never
it.
pulled it out. It's crazy.
Like a production assistant actually accidentally threw it out.
Yeah.
We can't find it.
They do.
Oh man.
My favorite instance of this in history now is Leprechaun 3, but my second favorite now is in Transformers 5. They like go on a 45-minute heist and they use the thing and it doesn't work. And then they never bring it up again.
Those Transformer movies are just
They're just so
yo, I was over the Transformers movies when Optimus Prime got stuck after he was flying.
the only one I've ever seen is 5.
Oh yeah.
Why? Why is that the only one you've seen?
Yeah. I like the first one though, but the rest is I
Never
couldn't
saw
be
it.
with the rest of them.
Sorry, I didn't
like
mean
the
to
first-
sidetrack us on Transformers. We should keep talking.
No, it's all good.
But
It's all
yeah.
good.
Yeah, Jeff,
They're
let's
awful.
try to focus on this. Now about Encarta 90,
apologies.
about the Encarta CD-ROM, the rules that are showing up on there largely play out in the film. We learn that if a mortal gets his hands on a leprechaun's gold, he'll get one wish for every shilling in his collection. If you destroy the leprechaun's gold, you get rid of the leprechaun, and a leprechaun's gold can do him no harm. And those rules, and rules is a big thing with these movies, allows these characters, this rogues gallery, this motley crew of Vegas misfits, to indulge their basest fantasies. And it's something to me to see what each person chooses. Scott, of course, chooses to win all his money back and be on a winning streak. Fazio wishes to be the greatest magician of all time, which doesn't pan out very well for him.
No.
We never really see that he's any good at anything.
Right. It's actually disappointing. I was hoping
He's
that
like,
we would
I
see
want
a
to be the
magic
greatest
trick.
magician of all time, and then he comes out and he's like, "Oops, everything's on fire, and I'm dead."
No, he's good at like dragging you to hell and back. Like I did enjoy his bitchiness.
No, it definitely worked. It definitely worked for that. And like his interaction with Loretta was great.
Loretta, that's her name.
You know, Loretta's situation is unfortunate.
Oh,
you know, because she just, I mean, look, she's working in a crooked casino. She doesn't seem like a particularly crooked person, but you know, she's a product of an environment.
But she's the one that ripped him off, though. She's the one that ripped him off with the magnet underneath the table.
Yeah, but I feel like that was Mitch's doing. That was the casino owner. I almost feel like she's doing the work, but I don't feel
Mitch
like
was a really wonderful, and like there was some good comeuppance there. There was depth to that death.
Are we prepared to talk about Mitch? Because I don't really know. Are we actually prepared at this point in the podcast to talk about the scene with Mitch? Because we talked about the commercial briefly, but I think this is like probably among the weirdest, most awesome things about this movie. Mitch's, I want to say death scene, but it's so much more than that. Is really the thing. I had no expectation of any of what happened there with him. I mean, he was definitely a pervy sort of guy.
Yeah.
So I have a few questions here.
Okay.
And one, is there anyone among us that wouldn't at least once in a while check in on the Leprechaun Network if it was a real thing? Because I was riveted by the programming choice. Was incredible. Sorry. The second thing is, can the Leprechaun build and replicate robots?
He
has to be able to.
That was funny.
Because it happened. There was a robot that kills this dude, a sexy robot that was very human.
Leprechaun was forward thinking in that regard.
I was more like the toplessness and like the risque aspects. Were the other ones as raunchy, or is this like just a direct-to-video feature?
Okay, so the first movie is this weird situation where it was originally meant to be kind of like a PG-13 kids horror movie that they then went back and did reshoots to make it a little gory. It's a little suggestive in places, but there's no nudity.
Okay.
In the second movie, when they know what it is, there is a topless scene involving the female lead, which is actually, and we can get into this for this one, an illusion created by the leprechaun, which is exactly what as IMDb calls this, fantasy girl from the TV. Fantasy girl is, again, another one of his illusions. Incidentally, she was played by Heidi Staley, who was also known as Heidi Lynn, who was Penthouse Pet of the Month in October of 1994, and later went on to appear in a number of adult features and erotic thrillers up and through 1999.
R.I.P. Larry Flynn.
So it was very much the sort of thing where they let nudity happen in the second film, and so for the third film, it's like, well, now we can do nudity.
Okay, yeah.
And they kind of really went for it by getting an actual penthouse pet too.
The difference between these two scenes, though, is that in two, the nude,
they're illusions.
Illusions. The illusion in the second one turns into the killing machine, but the machine is like some fans, right? Or like a lawnmower or something.
Yeah, it's like industrial fans.
Yeah, industrial fans. So they're like there actually and real. This came out of a television and turned into a robot from a real person.
Yeah.
I mean,
where's the robot coming from, Gary?
But look,
I have to know.
You're the one who tries to approach these films with an imagination bent, and I try to apply some logic to these. And the logic here is that knowing that the Leprechaun's powers include telekinesis and the ability to be a master illusionist, it seems to me that he used pieces from the television with telekinesis to present that machine, which I don't think was an actual robot. I think it was just
Break open
pieces.
a television and make a robot, Gary. That's insane.
No, it's perfectly plausible.
Insane.
It's perfectly
The
plausible.
TV was
Jeff.
still there the whole time.
You're talking about this as a robot, and it wasn't actually a robot. It's just pieces of electronics from a television that were made to represent a human-like form. Again, it's not meant to be a functioning robot because this is all the illusion
But
created
it
by the
was
Leprechaun.
one.
No, it wasn't, Jeff. That's
Okay.
the magic
All right,
of
all right.
filmmaking. It's movie magic.
All right.
This is why you've only seen one Transformers movie.
That's a good point. And it was the fifth one.
It's like, do you think that
Yeah.
Tony, one of the goons, actually became a human slot machine? Do you think he literally had coins coming out of his body? No, it's an illusion.
Yes. No, of course he
Hey,
did.
can we talk about those two for a second?
Oh,
Yes.
sure.
It was like one of those films where, like, if this was like 1995 and it was a big budget film, like that's the point in the film where Dennis Leary would come do his material about the Mets. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you remember like when they would just like let Dennis Leary do like 2 minutes of material, like
Yeah.
movie, like, like that's
Yeah, those two guys are given a lot of freedom to just like talk
yes,
in the film. For people that are wildly unimportant to anything, there's a whole scene where they just like talk to each other about what's going on.
yeah. There's some subversive commentary in this film.
I thought they were a couple.
Ooh.
What is clear to me is if you look at the timeline, the chronology of this, Pulp Fiction was 1994. So we're already thinking about the John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson interplay of Pulp Fiction and its influence on cinema. So their shtick between Art and Tony seems very much to be informed by the sort of Royale with cheese type conversations that happened in Pulp Fiction.
I think that's a bigger stretch than robots being made out of TVs, Gary. A comparison between this and Pulp Fiction.
Well, agree to disagree.
Fair enough.
Wow.
Fair enough.
I think the interplay between those two people has very much to do with the impact of Tarantino, who incidentally considers Brian Trenchard Smith one of his favorite directors.
Incredible.
I'm sorry, that gag with the fuck you on the electrocardiograph with the Shamrocks was great.
Oh,
That was-
I pierced my
Oh,
sides
yeah.
laughing. at
That was wonderful.
He opened it up. It said, "Fuck you."
Yeah, that was wild. That movie was wild, man. That movie was bugged out. I had no idea.
I hope that you go back and watch all the rest.
I don't know.
I doubt that
Oh,
you
no.
will, but I mean,
Are we not selling it? Are we not selling it, Vince? Are we doing a bad
I gotta
job?
say, there's some aspects that that make me curious though. The fact that honestly, I think I would be more intrigued if there was more of a continuity, like if there was more of a backstory, like then I was trying to find out more about the Leprechaun. Like if there was more of a backstory set up, and if there was a more continuous nature to all of the films, I'd be more interested.
You can come with me on a fun journey to create that. It's really fun to just decide that these movies all like are in a row.
Having been on journeys, quote unquote, with Jeff, I would advise against that very strongly.
Wow. Okay. So if I know I'm skipping around, and I know this is not the movie, but how does he end up in space?
Jeff, do you want to take that one?
I would love to take that one. We're not allowed to talk about space much, but the one thing I will say is that there's no reason for that leprechaun to be in space.
There's no
And
reason.
one is never given, as far as I know.
And
What?
Maggie, my understanding is the space is your favorite of the films.
Oh yeah, I mean I haven't seen it in years. I saw it with a bunch of people in a dorm. It was the night that, and one of the people I watched it with was the guy who played Skull from the Power Rangers. So if you remember Bulk and Skull,
Wow.
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
You're
went
like
to theater
you're a
school.
real celeb.
yeah. It was at this theater school. Like he decided he wanted to go to like college after he was on the Power Rangers, and so then he met like a bunch of friends I knew, and we all watched Leprechaun in Space.
Hectic.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But it was, I
Hectic.
remember it was great. I remember we had a great time. But I love the fact that like this movie didn't really explain anything either. Like it was the only exposition it really gave you was the video game. Like the
Oh,
video,
okay.
the Encarta, like the video
Mhm.
narration. And that's
The thing in the pawn shop.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Like it's not like it's like, hey, why is this medallion here? Fuck you. That's why. We're not
What I would have loved to see would have been some background on the character who we see only briefly, known as Lucky, who shows up with the stone leprechaun wearing the medallion.
Oh, like how did he get that way? Yeah.
He's been through hell, clearly involving this leprechaun who has clearly taken bites out of him and put him through the ringer.
2 had this trope as well, right? Like 2 had a bum, a drunk bum.
Well, that's a bit harsh, Jeff.
That's what I think. That's what they named him in the credits.
Trunk bum.
A drunk bum. So this dude like meets up with the leprechaun and then later tries to explain to the cops, and the cops are just like, "You're a crazy person. You're like screaming about leprechauns. Let's take this guy away." And it's sort of a trope of like people who are down on their luck, like showing up to places and being like, "Leprechaun is here. Don't fuck with this leprechaun," but being ignored.
I kind of just like that, really, just that archetype of the person who Vegas just chewed up and spit out. Like he's leaving, like he's leaving, like Nomi at the end of Showgirls. Like I am getting out of here.
Lucky's story seems to be worthwhile to know more about it. It's a shame that we don't get any of that, because my understanding is that the leprechaun doesn't know he's in Vegas until after he's been taken out of stone and he finds himself on the strip. So how did Lucky get with this big stone statue to where he was going when he's clearly penniless and in such a bad way that he has to go to a really shady pawn shop in order to get rid of this thing?
I really hope that when we all pass away, that there's a big book of answers. That part is real. That you just have a big book of answers. Because I'm gonna go and I'm gonna find out what's going on with Lucky and how the leprechaun ended up in fucking space. That's what I want to know. Those are 2 questions that will burn me forever. Lucky is awesome.
I mean, I'd probably just want to talk to my loved ones and people who mean something to me. I probably won't want to talk about the Leprechaun movies once I pass away. But
you're always searching for meaning. What a foolish search.
I just feel.
I know, but I'm. You know what? And I want to know about this leprechaun's deeply complicated interior life.
Including the poison spit.
Like, yeah, like, well, what's driving this leprechaun to kill? You know, hurt people. That's all I'm saying.
That's right. That's a good point.
Greed is the obvious driver of what he does, but we do not know quite what makes him so obsessed in this way. I mean, it must be the gold.
Right.
The gold itself holds some power over him because, again, when Gupta, the Argentinian pawn shop owner, gets his hands on 1 shilling, it drives a leprechaun to madness.
Yeah.
He would have been perfectly fine.
I have a theory on that.
I'm sure you do.
Shocker. But I think his obsession with the gold is semi-warranted. I know it's greed is part of it, and it's defined as greed in the movie. But if there was something around you that if somebody got it, you were like their servant immediately, and you had to like grant them wishes, you too would be very protective of that object. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
This guy's got 100 of them, and if anyone gets one, now he's got to like make them into whatever they want to be.
So you think that's what it was when they found the shilling, that it was actually the leprechaun who was granting those wishes?
Right. I think so. I mean, I guess the shilling does it, but the leprechaun, as you see later, is the one with the power.
So it was basically each piece of gold is kind of a portion of makes up his power.
Yes, I truly believe that, and it was definitely part of the first film. I know they're not canonical or whatever, but it was part of the first film, is that when he had less gold, he had less power.
Oh.
In this film, I think is the clearest connection of how tied the leprechaun is to the gold. And I think there is a sort of mystical, metaphysical, if you will, connection between this pot of gold and the leprechaun, not just on powers, but just in general. Because again, one of the rules in this film is if you destroy the leprechaun's gold, you get rid of the leprechaun.
Correct.
Which seems to be an extraordinary situation. So clearly he wants to hold on to this, because if if that gold is destroyed, that is the end of him, conceivably.
Not to mention this whole wish thing. It's tough. It's a tough life for this leprechaun. I mean, all he can do is think about gold, man.
And the wishes thing is interesting, because what ends up happening really is more likenable to rather than a genie's lamp, but a monkey's paw.
Yeah.
Where every wish has some sort of dark side to it. Exactly. And, the leprechaun is the one who enacts said consequence. I think about Loretta, where, Loretta's situation where, and I guess the best way to describe it, I think Jeff said this to me earlier, was a Botox explosion.
That's right. I keep track of the deaths, and her death was Botox explosion.
Yo, that was ridiculous.
It was.
She didn't get to enjoy it for very long either. That's what bummed me out.
Nah.
So she got like 20 minutes of being hot or whatever.
Yeah.
And then just is dead. That was really unfair, because like of all of the, I know it's vanity and that's like a cardinal sin or whatever.
Right.
But the other dudes were like greedy and rapey and all kinds of bad stuff, except for, with exception to the fact that she probably would have used this new sexiness for evil intent. It was a pretty fine. I was fine with this. She just wanted to be hot for a little while. There's nothing wrong with that. Everybody wants to look good, and nobody wants to exercise.
In fairness to her, she did get to have and display the benefits of her wish longer than Fazio did. Fazio didn't get
true.
any
It's a
of that
fine
opportunity.
point.
Like he got on stage and he had all those powers, and then he ended up being zapped into that box and chainsawed in half.
I love that because it was Vegas. The fact that a leprechaun like leapt out and was doing magic, everyone was just like, "Oh, this is great! I love this."
Yeah, this is part of the
show. They just went with it.
And that's actually an example of art imitating life, because in Warwick Davis's memoirs, he talks about that one night that they spent in Vegas, so the one day that they were there, his hotel room at the Mirage had also been the makeup room. So he would have to walk through the casino floor at the Mirage in full leprechaun garb. Full makeup.
Oh, wow.
And people were trying to rub him for good luck and trying to and asking him questions. And so it was the kind of thing where no one was fazed by him necessarily. They were like terrified, or they were, amused, or thought, well, this is Vegas. Why would the leprechaun be walking around on the floor?
Well, what happens in Vegas?
Life imitates art, man.
For me, I think that there's a lot I was willing to believe. There's a lot, a lot of disbelief I'm willing to suspend. But I just don't, if I was Lee Armstrong's character, what was the
Tammy?
If I was Tammy, there are like a million times I would have ditched Scott.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I wrote this in my notes.
Yeah. There are a million times where I'm like, all right, I'm getting off this train.
Yeah, she was clearly older than him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's 18.
Yeah, but how old was she? She seemed like she was like, what? Her character was like 24 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
It's a little curious of why. Maybe she has like a younger brother. And so she sort of saw him in that context and wanted to protect him.
When they met, he almost hit her with a car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she was like, do you know anything about cars? And it's like, of course not. He almost hit you with one.
Yeah.
That's like the number one rule is don't hit people with this fucking thing.
Yeah, and then he started talking about engines and pistons, and I mean, it's totally no play, but none whatsoever. No game whatsoever. Just
No, he's a total scrub. No question there.
Yeah.
Scrub.
Oh,
Like,
just
the fact that he had a car was amazing. And he had that big old check, which,
for a 90s movie, she certainly really wants scrubs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the time, I think we were all pretty anti-scrub. I was.
Well, this was 95. Scrubs didn't hit till like what, 98, 99?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is like, maybe that was
no, I'm afraid it's 1992.
Yes.
From 1992's Ooh on the TLC tip.
Really?
Boom.
Wow.
Whoa.
So she's taking a decidedly pro scrub stance.
Pro scripts.
Did you did you guys find yourself cheering for the Leprechaun?
Yes.
Beans?
In certain aspects, yeah. I wanted dude to I wanted dude to lose. I don't know if I wanted him to turn into a leprechaun, but I definitely wanted him to go through some like more hardship because I didn't feel sorry for his character at all. Because I genuinely, when he was first introduced, I didn't like him whatsoever. I was like, yo, this dude's a chump. I mean, who does that? Who goes in and like everything that he did was so bitch macho. It was terrible. He was completely bitch macho. I couldn't. So I didn't really like care for dude. And then like he was just,
I'm 100% with you. So thus far, I've liked each movie more than the last one, than the preceding one. Mainly because each one of them, the characters get worse. Number two also has a main dude that is a total pud.
Crazy.
Where you're just like, what? Why do I care about this person at all? Are we trying with these characters? And then 3, you're just like, oh, dude, just please bite this guy, rip his face off, end this man, and let the girl get away.
Well, what's incredible to me is that, like, for whatever his screenwriting talents are, like, he has very limited acting ability. And the fact that they were going to have this guy do, like, limericks and Irish accents and try to match the delivery and cadence, the Leprechaun is just like, God.
He was truly bad at it, too.
Yeah,
he was awful.
Nuts. Yeah.
So, I was cheering really hard for the Leprechaun and have been in every film thus far.
Wow. So every death in all the Leprechaun films you feel is well deserved?
Not every death. The first pawn shop owner he kills did nothing wrong. He was just looking up some information for some kids.
It was a pretty great kill, though.
But it was really great. He got pogoed to death. That was pretty sick.
Pogo stick, pogo to his lungs.
Sorry.
What? That's great.
It's a wonderful film series, Beats.
What?
So good.
So
yeah, that's nuts.
Obviously, as a series, there were 6 of these filmed with Warwick Davis. First one was in the sticks. The second one was in Hollywood. Part 3, as we've been discussing, was Las Vegas. Then he goes to space. Then he goes to the hood twice.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you put him in a new sequel?
The Jersey Shore.
Submarine.
I love both of these answers so much. Beans, you said a submarine?
Submarine.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
All right, Beans, walk us through Submarine. And then, Maggie, I want to hear about Jersey Shore.
Yo, the reason why he would go into a submarine is because of something that a sailor found on leave, and they would bring onto the ship, unbeknownst to him, that would have the
Maybe his pot of gold.
Yeah, something unbeknownst to him would bring the Leprechaun onto the ship,
Love it.
and they'd have to, and then an emergency would happen where they would have to go under. They would have to be submerged for a long period of time, and it could either be because they're in the middle of a conflict or about to avoid a conflict, or because there'd be a malfunction caused by the Leprechaun.
I feel like submarine movies, there's always some reason that they have to stay off radar, which is the whole point of the submarine in the first place.
Right.
So I don't understand what the fuck radar you're already off radar. You're in a submarine. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's perfect.
So The Hunt for Green October.
Oh, he was sitting on that one.
Yeah. Yeah,
well, I
definitely.
think I love any idea for a Leprechaun movie that involves people being trapped.
Yes.
It's the idea that they can get away. Like Lucky got away in part 3. All these people who were in Vegas, if they had just given him back his gold, they could have walked away with their lives. But the fact that they chose to engage and chose greed, they couldn't get there. Maggie, can you tell us a bit more about your idea for a Jersey Shore Leprechaun movie?
Oh, yeah. No, he just terrorizes a bunch of like 20-somethings who have a summer share. So he hides out. All right. So in Ocean City, New Jersey, and it's a dry town, but some genius put a liquor store right at the bridge. So the Leprechaun hangs out there. and when someone comes in for alcohol, he hops into their Jeep, and they are, unbeknownst to them, they are stuck with this leprechaun for the weekend. It's like a slasher, like just works his way through the house.
The best part of writing a Leprechaun script on the fly is that you don't have to have any reason to have that leprechaun there.
No.
They've never had any reason to have the leprechaun go.
It's like I might be, he's Irish, so of course he's in a liquor store,
I'll take it. Those are my people, and I vouch for it.
20-year-olds that whip a summer share are irritating and drunk, so no one minds like watching them get murdered.
And they'll probably have some sort of stupid gold chains or rings on.
Yeah. Some Tivas.
How do these dopes find the gold?
Ooh.
We could introduce rainbows. We haven't had any rainbows.
It's probably at a chip and putt. Like it's
that's funny.
it's one in like the miniature golf.
I love this.
Yeah.
Yo, honestly, when you mentioned Jersey Shore and the summer share, I was thinking to me the reason why he followed them back from the liquor store was because the gold was in the house.
Oh.
It could just be in the house for no reason. That would be great.
So the house was built on ancient leprechaun burial grounds?
Ancient
Exactly.
leprechaun gold. Yes.
Yeah. But one other question though. So everywhere he goes, the pot of gold follows him?
He can conjure the gold and has done so on several occasions. In fact, inside of someone and destroyed them was one place he made it manifest.
What?
All up in them guts.
What?
Yeah. The gold has to be around because you have to try and fool the leprechaun to get his gold. That's sort of a thing that's supposed to be happening.
In every movie, they've tried to fool the leprechaun out of his gold.
It doesn't work very well. He is the genius from Killarney. That was the worst fucking casino I have ever seen. I used to, when I was in college, I had a lot of side jobs. One of the side jobs was I would go to like fake casino nights and deal cards.
Really?
Yeah, I did that.
Huh.
For years. I had like a running gig every now and again. This guy would call me and be like, we need dealers. And I'd be like, all right, cool. And I'd go deal cards.
So is this like an underworld like gambling thing, or was it like casino night at the
It was
local high school?
casino night for like business people. It'd be like a giant business would have a casino night.
Oh,
or
so networking.
A giant club of people would be like, oh, let's have a big meeting and we'll have fun. And they have like fake money. So they come in with fake money and gamble it, and the person with the most at the end gets prizes, that sort of thing. And it was a little better than the one they built for Leprechaun 3.
The Lucky Shamrock.
Yes. Which, is that a real place?
No, of course not. I mean, look, the banner outside the Lucky Shamrock, it looks like
I really wanted to go to Vegas and like go to the Lucky Shamrock really badly.
I hate to break it to you, but the Lucky Shamrock does not exist. It was
shocker.
Something we saw in a movie. Actually, the venue where the casino floor and all that stuff was filmed is actually not in Las Vegas, but was filmed in Los Angeles at the Ambassador Hotel, which had been used for a number of different movies over the years. But it also has the somewhat auspicious distinction of being where Sirhan Sirhan assassinated Robert Kennedy.
So it had 2 of the worst abominations in history associated with it.
Wow.
The assassination of RFK and Leprechaun 3, Leprechaun in Vegas.
I thought this was your favorite of the series. It sounds like that's still still a floor to go through.
But I think I appreciate it more because it's an abomination. Does that make sense?
For you, it does.
Brian Trenchard Smith was so incredible at doing this. And Warwick Davis was having a ball. He
Absolutely.
was having an absolute, like, the best time of his life. He was hilarious. This had the most laughs
Oh, for sure.
For
100%.
of the three we've seen.
Like all the stuff that he did, even just in the casino itself, like him playing craps and winning, that was delightful.
Turning that guy into a slot machine.
Also delightful. Warwick Davis,
The sex robot was delightful.
not a robot, but the TV
It was
part
you
illusion.
made it out of electronics and it moved and did stuff. It was
He makes plenty of things move. We've established that he has telekinesis. He can do all sorts of stuff. He doesn't have to have the sophistication
Why
to make
do
a
you
robot.
hate fun? Why can't he have made a robot? It's cooler that way.
He's a 2,000-year-old leprechaun. He does not know how to use electronics.
What would you do with 2,000 years? Maybe he's a quick learner.
He spent most of the time in a fucking tree.
He knew how TV worked really well, because I would totally watch a 24-hour Leprechaun network.
I mean, it's a shame because we really only saw commercials and religious programming. I would love to see kind of what that original programming would look like.
I 100% would put up the dough if I had it. I'd put up the dough for Warwick Davis as the Leprechaun preacher show every Sunday morning.
Well, I mean,
I would attend that church online.
these movies didn't cost very much, so I think you probably could pony up the dough, perhaps at one of your fake casinos.
Yeah, I'm never going to live that down for some reason.
No, I'm amazed that you revealed that information about yourself. But, you know, it's fine. You took a moment of vulnerability, and now we can exploit it.
You're really mean to me, Gary.